Welcome into this week's Bog and Smog Fantasy Cast. This is not Bog, by the way. Our host, Bog, cannot be with us today, so we have Couch. Hello.
Hi.
How are you
Hi,
doing?
fans. I'm doing well, thank you, Phil.
So, we have another league mate in here, filling in for Bog this week. For this show, we're going to do a Week 1 recap of all of the games that were played last week, and then we will do a segment called Transaction of the Week. It will just be basically, we'll pick one transaction that we all like, and we'll talk about why we like it. Then we have a brand new segment called Fades and Feels that Couch is going to bring you guys. And then to end it out, we'll do a Week 2 preview. I know we had power rankings on the show last week, but we're not going to do power rankings every week. We're going to come back after 4 weeks and see where everybody's sitting, and then we'll do another power rankings in Week 5. So, after all of that, let's go into the Week 1 recap. So I'm going to bring this up here. And we're going to go through all of the games that we had last week and see where we're all sitting. So at the top, since this is my page, we're just going to go through 1-1's Wildlings. Oops. Versus Who Do You Think You Are? I Am. 1-1's Wildlings, that's me, scored the most points and obviously took the win because of it. Cole, since this is my team, why don't you go through this and see why did I, just recap this game here.
Sure. Thank you for being so humble, by the way, Smog. We have from top to bottom on your team here a set of extremely high performing kickers and defenses. No, we've got quarterbacks, wide receivers. Everybody really put up above average numbers for you. And anytime you put up 150 points, you're not finding an L. It's going to be a win. The things that hurt Joe's team here was obviously Mike Williams, two receptions on 4 targets. And as you can see last night, when he's not sharing the backfield with Keenan Allen, he's going to get some more targets. But, it was a lot closer matchup going into the weekend, but I think both of you have such high performing and explosive players that every week's going to be like this. You're going to have weeks where you're 120, 115. Then the next week you could draw up 170.
Well, thank you. I think Miami defense did me a solid here, getting me 18 points. Anytime a defense gets you 18 points, it's pretty great. So it was neck and neck going into the weekend, but then after the Pat Mahomes game, I felt pretty confident.
I like Joe's chances. He's got 1%, it says there. So
he still has 1% chance to win. Yep.
There's a stat correction coming, I'm sure, for 45 points.
All right, next up is Nectar of the Gods versus the Fantasy Football Team. Tyler versus Ben. So I think Nectar of the Gods he was one of the lowest scoring this week due to, as you can see, some of these guys not performing well. Aaron Rodgers putting up 4.7 points. That's not what you're going to see each week. Although it looked like that there was one bomb touchdown that Christian Watson dropped. It could have boosted his points up quite a bit. 75-yard touchdown will always do that. So I'm looking for him to bounce back next week. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott putting up 5. That's not what you want to see. Only 10 carries, 2 targets. Not what you want to see from Ezekiel Elliott. I think he'll also bounce back. What do you think about Elliott?
I mean, a lot of that game's narrative was Dak getting injured, and I don't think many teams put their offense in that position and come out with a lot of fantasy points or just points in their game. So, I mean, it's a pretty expected result for that. Even on the other side for T. Higgins going out with a concussion, you know, you're going to have that every week. But hopefully you have enough explosive players in other positions where a person's really, really good week can offset that one person that just puts up 1 point or pulls a Cam Akers, which we'll talk about later. So
we will talk about that. It's exciting to talk about. And then there's a couple others. You know, AJ Green looking to get better without Hopkins, but obviously Kyler wasn't tossing him the ball too much, and that game kind of got out of hand. Arizona didn't look too good there. And then MVS, Patrick Mahomes just passes the ball around. Everybody's getting 4 targets. You know, I think he had 9 different receivers with catches. So I don't trust any I don't trust any Chiefs wide receivers at the moment. I think Ben came out with the win. It was, a little closer than, people might have seen, but Ben comes out with a win here. So 1-0 for the fantasy football team. The next one is No Regrets versus Kicking It with Kareem. Jordan versus Cole. I like what your quarterback did here. Josh Allen putting up 33 points. That's always what you want to see from your quarterback. And Josh Allen could do that on a weekly basis. However, Cam Akers, how do you feel about Cam? How are you feeling?
I mean, Josh Allen was the only thing I could really get excited for, and it was on a Thursday night. So I had a rough Saturday, Sunday, Saturday expecting that I'm going to put up points. Sunday, just wondering where they all went.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Akers getting only 3 carries for 0 yards. That is not what anyone was expecting week 1. Could be that they're gonna ease him into a number 1 role. But Henderson looked pretty good. So and I think this week you're starting Henderson, aren't you?
I am. I don't think that Cam is ready to even go 50%, share of that offensive backfield. Clearly, they weren't in a position in this game either to really establish the run. They were kind of playing from behind most of the time. So it could be a lot closer than we think it is, but it's definitely concerning. I feel like 3 carries is that a rookie could get more carries than that in his first game. I mean, this guy has such upside. It's sad to see, and hopefully that injury is not going to bog him down and make his career shorten. So,
right. Sanders getting 17.5 points. That's what you want to see from Sanders. He only got 13 carries, 2 receptions, but he got in the end zone. And he got I think a big run. Give this guy the damn ball is what his nickname is, and I think if you do, you're going to get points like that. Going on, both of your third receivers didn't do a whole lot. I think Renfro will bounce back, and Mooney was in a monsoon. So I think the Bears San Francisco game is just kind of forget about it and move forward type of a game. But yeah, there's not much left to, Amon-Ra. I love Amon-Ra. 12 receptions. I think there was a stat that in the last 7 games he had over 10 targets or 10 receptions or 10 targets. I think it was, and he's obviously going to be good. And Singletary looked good, but he wasn't, there was a big timeshare there, which was weird to me because Singletary came out looking really good, and then they put Zach Moss.
Well, they put a lot of draft capital in Cook. They've been Moss is finally healthy now, so it's not really split, and it's like 40% single, 30-30 after that. Maybe a Cook fumbled, so I don't know what they're going to try to do this week, but I think anybody in that offense is potential to blow up with Josh Allen, so don't snooze on anyone there, really.
Absolutely.
But I mean, obviously, with a loss in week 1 here, I mean, I don't give up on any of my players. We're gonna finish the year 14-1. How's that sound?
It sounds pretty bold, but very well could happen. Next up, we're going to go with natural born Kylers versus Arya Ready for Some Football. The second highest scoring team, Arya Ready for Some, Michael Tweeten, put up 137 points, and here's why. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson went off, and there's not much you can do to stop these guys, it seems. So I feel like if these guys can stay healthy, he's forced to be reckoned with all year long. And even Cooper Kupp put up 25 points, which is phenomenal. But when you have two guys putting up over 20, over 30, it's hard to beat. Both of their running backs are kind of similar. You want to see more from McCaffrey, obviously. He's more of a 20-point guy when he's in. Only 10 carries, which is weird, but that's how it played out in week 1. And
there's a lot of new pieces to that Carolina offense, so I don't think that's something that was unexpected. It's disappointing for sure. I do see, too, that in Hill's first game with Miami, he did put up some fairly decent numbers, so that's good to see that he's going to be part of that offense, and there's no lag between quarterbacks for him. So,
right, yeah, he was bold enough to put Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in there, relying on the Miami receivers, and I think he's doing it this week again too. Hopefully they can put out the same kind of games as last week. Other than that, Clyde getting 2 receiving touchdowns is nice, but 7 carries, 10 total touches is concerning. You're not going to get 2 touchdowns on 10 total touches every week. So I expect him to not put up 20 points. How many points did he put up? This is, hold on. Let me just take a quick peek. 13. Okay.
Last night, yeah, and it was similar. It was similar volume. He didn't get the touchdowns.
Correct.
Yep.
So, are you ready for some football coming out 1-0? And we'll get into who he plays this week.
That's the 10 beating last year's 1.
That's right. Yeah, natural born Ethan was our champion last year, and Tweeten was down there at the bottom. But it looks like the tables have turned. Everybody's healthy in week 1, though. We'll see how that goes. All right. The next one up is your host Bog, who is not here. Sir Davos versus the rando guy out east, Tanner. And you can see here, we have Tanner in ranked number 2 in the power rankings, and he came away with a win, due to his running backs are amazing. Saquon Barkley looks like he's back. What else do you see on here?
I mean, having those 2 running backs on your team, and even just the CD Lamb, DJ Moore, both of them having those low-performing games is a fluke. They're going to produce much more this year. But having those 2 running backs, those offenses are built to run the ball, and you're going to get volume. It might not be 30 points every week, but you're going to be in a lot of games because there are RB1s that are going to put up every time 10, 15 carries minimum. So, but on the other side of the ball, you have Debo. That was, once again, kind of a fluke game. 11 points is still nothing to bat an eye at for sure. But Travis Kelsey throwing up big numbers. It's both teams have some players that are gonna throw down huge numbers on a week-to-week basis. So I don't think you should get discouraged with a loss here. Bog. You're going to come back strong. You're a little worried on quarterback right now, sure, with Dak going down and having to rely on Stafford. Oh no, you're going to have to rely on Matt Stafford.
Right, yeah. Matt Stafford putting up 10 points is usually not the case, so I think he'll be fine there. But Dak going down is definitely a hit to his team. So, all right, that was it. That was the Week 1 recap. Now let's get into the transaction of the week. I'll start this off with, there's a transaction that I liked a lot, and Ben went out and got paid up for a running back with $69. Nice. He went out and got Rex Burkhead. Now, it doesn't seem flashy. It doesn't seem like why do you like a 32-year-old washed-up running back? Well, it's because in Week 1, he had 70% of the snaps over Dameon Pierce, who was the hyped-up guy, hyped-up rookie coming into the year. And it very well could be that he's just working into the offense and going to get more snaps as the season goes on. But he got 3 more carries than him, a total of 14 carries as opposed to Pierce's 11. And the biggest thing is he got 8 targets as opposed to Pierce's 1. So that tells me Rex Burkhead is the pass-catching back in that backfield right now, at least. And 8 targets, I mean, Houston's not going to be ahead in many games, so they're going to have to pass the ball. They're going to be checking down to Burkhead, and I think that's an amazing pickup, especially, Elijah Mitchell went down for him. He's out 8 weeks, so he needed a pickup. I think that was the best guy on the waivers to get a spot start, even if you don't start him this week, just to add some depth throughout the season. So Rex Burkhead is my pick. What do you have?
My favorite transaction for the week, Smog, was Kyle Phillips. Nick picked him up. I believe the bid was $41. I think 3 players actually put in a bid for him. And he's a player that I had on my team for a brief moment. I was going to throw him in that newly added taxi spot. And, the thing about that Tennessee offense is, yes, there's Henry, but when we're throwing the ball, it's Treylon Burks, and he's got such upside potential there, and I think that is what overshadowed Kyle Phillips going into this year. But if you look at Kyle Phillips' college numbers, I think you'd be surprised at how close they're going to match up probably this year. They might even have similar stats at the end of the year. So don't sleep on the screwdriver, Kyle Phillips.
I love it. I love the nickname. And Nick did have a pick. He had Tweeton's pickup of Marvin Jones, dropping Marquise Callaway. Marvin Jones, I also like this pickup. Marvin Jones has been a big play guy in his career. It looks like he might be, the number 2. He could be the number 2 guy in Jacksonville, and he could be very sneaky. Kirk, obviously, being the number 1, Christian Kirk, got the money, and he looks like a number 1 in Jacksonville. But number 2 is, up for grabs, and I think Marvin Jones has a pretty good opportunity. He's 32. He's not going to be a big dynasty play, but good depth piece on his bench, and I think you could spot start him in a good matchup. So, Marvin Jones, what do you think about that?
Wide receivers age a lot differently than running backs. So I know people say, Marvin Jones, what are you, 35? What are you, 40? Shouldn't you retire? Wide receivers can play deep into their years if they stay healthy. And he's always been a very skillful player for the Lions. And it seems like his role for the Jaguars, which it is the Jaguars, right?
It is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like his role has been actually, he gets a pretty good target share. So I'm not worried about his production, and the value that Michael got for him was terrific. I think it was $3 or something. It was a steal.
Yeah, and I think
price.
he had like 81% of the snaps. So he's out there a lot. I like the pick. So, and a big transaction, not waiver wire, but was a trade between you and Rasky. What were you thinking there?
Yeah, so I was closely watching Jihan Dotson in his first game with the Redskins, the Commanders. That won't happen.
The Manders, yeah.
The Manders. No, and he looked very sharp, I think, in his first NFL game. And obviously the stat sheet says that too. He had 2 touchdowns, decent target share. I think he's only going to get more involved with that offense. So that's why I was very high on Dotson, and that's why this trade got going. I did have to give up arguably the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class, however. The only thing that really hurts Jameson Williams is the injury he suffered in the national championship game. And if that wasn't the case, I think he would have been drafted maybe 2 overall, 3 overall. And that's why he went at 108 to me this year. And I still am sad to see him go. But I think sometimes you get a gut feeling on these rookies, and you're willing to gamble. And I do think Dotson's going to develop into something that he might not be your number 1, but he could be your 2 on your team, and he could be getting a decent amount of workload throughout the year this year. So how do you feel about losing a potential game-changing wide receiver like Williams from your team?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a good trade for you and Rasky, but having Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson, like having 2 big wide receivers on the same team is never what I search for. I think you having Amon-Ra St. Brown, it makes sense for you to go out and pick up a different rookie that's obviously getting some production. You got 2 touchdowns in the first game, and it helps you this year as well. So I think it was a great trade on both fronts. Rasty's going to be waiting for Jameson Williams to get healthy, and who knows when he'll be back. But I think it was a great straight up trade between you guys, plus a second round in 25. But
thanks, Smog.
All right, the next segment is Fades and Fields, brought to you by the one and only Couch. So why don't you go ahead and explain what this is and take it away.
So, fades and feels. Fade. What is a fade? A fade is a player that inside of the top 10 or top 20 expert rankings for this week, week 2, players that you think are going to blow up. And these experts say, yes, they're going to blow up. And what a fade is on that is this player in my gut, in my magical fantasy knowledge, I don't see them performing at that high level. I'm not saying they're not going to be a top 10 quarterback or wide receiver for the week, but they're definitely going to be, I think, a little bit lower than the experts ranked them. They might not throw 5 touchdowns, but they're going to throw 2 or maybe 3. They're going to still be on, maybe wide receiver, quarterback 10 or 12 for the week, but they're not going to be at the 5 or the 2 spot.
Sure.
And so that's a fade. Now, a feel is the exact opposite of that. That's a player that's going to be outside of expert rankings. It's going to be in the 10s, 20s to 30s, and players that nobody is really expecting a huge game from them, but I have a feel that there are opportunities for that to change. So let's get into the quarterbacks right away. For week 2 here, I have Joe Burrow as my fade for the week. Now, last week, Dallas gave up just 212 yards to Tom Brady. And if you haven't heard of Tom Brady, I think he's a pretty good football player. I just looked him up. Yeah, he's doing okay.
Yeah, I think I've heard of him.
And last week, Burrow had a little bit of trouble. He had 4 interceptions, not all his fault, but he had 4 picks. And those two things, to me, say let's keep an eye on this. We know Joe Burrow is got some great wide receivers, and he's going to throw the ball a lot. So this is going to be an opportunity for him to show us if week 1 was just a fluke, or if he's really, really the player that we think he is from last year at the end of the year. And I'm going to go ahead and say he gets picked off at least 2 times this week. So I'm fading Joe Burrow. And now for my feel at quarterback, I'm feeling Carson Wentz. Yes, he's on the same team as the newly acquired Jihan Dotson. But last week he threw 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. And he's got Terry McLaurin, he's got Curtis Samuel, he's got Antonio Gibson, who's, if he's not running, he's getting 5 to 10 targets on the pass side of the ball. And I don't think you can argue with that group of people. So I think he's due for another big game this week. And now let's transition to running backs. My fade this week is Derrick Henry. And the reason I don't like Henry this week is for the simple fact that I think the Titans are going to get behind early, and I don't think they're going to give him his normal 20 to 25. Unless he bursts off a big one right away, I don't think he's going to get his points this week. He's not going to get 25 rushes. He's going to get maybe 15 if they're down, 2 or 3 scores. And I don't see him getting his normal weekly offensive production. So, and then my feel for this week is Cordero Patterson. Last week against the Saints, he put 120 yard on the board for a running back. And Atlanta as a team put up 201 yards. And the Saints actually do have a strong defense. Last year they had the 4th best run defense, and they've returned a lot of their starters. So in my gut, I'm thinking that this Atlanta team has a solid ground game, and they're going to keep coming at you. And we know the Rams also have a good defense, so this is going to be a shot in the dark here. But if Atlanta puts out a very good performance offensively again, I think people are going to start getting on board with what they're doing. It just stinks that Cordero wasn't being used like that when he was a Viking. Now, with our new offensive scheme, I could see it maybe being a possibility, but 2, 5, 6, 7 years ago, never. We would have never set up our offense to utilize him the way that Atlanta's doing it, and it's just fun to watch. So how do you feel about that Atlanta rusher, Cordero Patterson, Phil?
I mean, he showed last year that he can put up big numbers, and in week 1, he showed that he can put up big numbers. And they're using him, like you said, they're using him correctly. They're getting him the ball in open space. He is not trying to be, when the Vikings drafted him, he was a raw talent receiver and didn't turn out to be an amazing kick returner, but didn't turn out to be an amazing receiver. And now going to Atlanta, they are utilizing him correctly, and I like it. I like that pick.
Thanks. I try. So now back to a fade. We got wide receiver position. My fade for this week is CeeDee Lamb. And I do have to say, I would say CeeDee Lamb's going to still finish in the top 10 wide receivers this year. But unfortunately, he does not have Dak throwing him the ball right now. It'll be Cooper Rush this week. If you don't know Cooper Rush, he's been a backup in Dallas for 5 years now, I believe. And he's not had a lot of opportunities, so there's definitely a lot to learn about him. But we know a lot about backup quarterbacks. And yes, occasionally they have the talent and they have the ability to go out and throw a big game. But it is so unlikely in their first week in that offense, taking the helm. It'd be a safe play to say everyone in that offense is going to have a down week. Now, on the opposite side, I have a feel of Curtis Samuel. Once again, another commander. Now, Curtis had 11 targets, 4 carries last week for 15 fantasy points. And I think he's going to stay as that kind of a player in the Washington offense. And he might be not a high ceiling guy every week, but I do think if he's going to be as involved as he was in week 1 here, that he's a safe play on your flex spot going forward. And this week I would probably even say he's a wide receiver too, even though I think consensus has him at 26, which feels a lot lower than it should be, but I'm feeling him. So
yeah,
you can put your rankings aside for now.
There you go.
Now for tight ends, I'm fading Dalton Schultz this week. I think we just mentioned somebody called Cooper Rush.
CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb, exactly. Smog. We don't know what we have, but we do know that we're in for a treat, whether it's good or bad. So I'm excited to see what becomes of it, but I wouldn't put fantasy stock in Dalton Schultz this week. It's just, again, I mean, he had a great week 1, and it could be there, but I think defenses are going to know how to play against Cooper Rush right away, which is whoever he's targeting, whoever he's as a favorite for his passes, that they're gonna play against that strength right away, and that's going to be tough because they're going to challenge him to make a lot of decisions and a lot of plays that he hasn't made and a lot of things he hasn't done yet. So fading Dalton Schultz. And as a feel for tight end position, I have Hayden Hurst. Now, last week he played 75% of the snaps in that high-powered Bengals offense, and I think you can say if you're playing 75% of any snap on any team, that's a player that warrants some consideration. Now, they have him at ranked 17th tight end this week, and I would safely say he's going to be in that 10 to 5 range, so it's not too much of a stretch. Tight ends are obviously a boom-bust play most of the time, other than maybe the top 2 or 3. I don't know. How do you feel this week about Hayden Hurst, Phil?
I feel like I think what consensus is 17.
Yeah,
I feel like he's
on,
gonna
ESPN. Yep.
Yeah, I feel like he's gonna beat that consensus. So I think.
Well, and Dalton Schultz is consensus 5, and if I knew that Dak was throwing the ball, I'm 100% in on that. But this is scary territory.
Yeah, I completely agree with those 2 picks. Obviously, Dalton Schultz, we don't really know if does Cooper Rush hyper target a tight end? Does he who knows what Cooper Rush does? It's a big old question mark.
I think it's pretty typical. I think it's pretty typical for a lot of either rookie or backup quarterbacks that step into a role that do a lot more checkdowns to your running backs. They do a lot more little, flats or maybe out routes to tight ends, a little, safer routes where they're not going to be throwing 40 yards down the field just hoping that their wide receiver is going to go out and they get it, because they don't have all that timing down with all those players. So the short, quick passes is usually what you get from those quarterbacks, and it's safe to say that Cooper Rush is he's going to be a fun watch.
It'll be fun to see what he does or what he can do. I mean, if you want some input on this, I agree with everything. Obviously, the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz without Dak Prescott are concerning and scary to put in your lineup. And Joe Burrow, I think last year is what he is long term. He might be getting a rough start this year. I don't think you'll see 4 interceptions every week, obviously, and I think he had 2 fumbles. One was lost, so I think that's pretty uncharacteristic. But it would be safe to say he could fade a little bit this week. But we'll find out. We'll see.
Yep, and that is it for our fades and feels week 2 here on the Bog and Smog cast. And now I think we're going to transition into what week 2 might contain for some wins and losses for our teams. So Phil, why don't you take us through this here right away?
Yeah, week 2 preview. I will bring up the screen here. Now, we're recording Friday after the game last night, so it's going to give us a little preview of what's to come. So let's go ahead and start with, are you ready for some football against 1-1's Wildlings, which is yours truly. Both 1-0, so one of these teams, tweeting, is going to come out 2-0. A little preview of my prediction here. After seeing, I was pretty confident coming into this week, but after seeing last night's game, Pat Mahomes only putting up 17 points, which is nothing. I mean, that's fine, but I'm hoping for over 20 with this guy every week. But Austin Eckler putting up 13.9, I'm fine with that. He, 10 receptions or 10 targets. I like seeing that every week. Only 14 carries, but 13.9 I'm okay with. Now, if we go down a little bit, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that kind of cancels out right there, so I'm fine with that. But as we saw in the week 1 review, he has Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And I made the terrible decision of playing Juju Smith-Schuster. So, that decision alone makes me lean Michael Tweetin's way here. I'm out. I have Mecole Hardman and Smith-Schuster. I've been waiting for a wide receiver quarterback stack with Pat Mahomes for many years, and haven't gotten it after Tyreek and Travis Kelsey. I couldn't acquire those guys, so I thought this is the year. I have Juju. He's going to the Chiefs, but Pat Mahomes passes it to everybody. He has 11. I feel like he has 15 different targets a game. So I think the only pass catcher in Kansas City that you can trust on a weekly basis is Travis Kelsey. Everybody else is who gets the touchdown this week. And yeah, so this guy is not going to be in my lineup anytime soon unless you see that target count be consistently over 8 targets a game. So that's too bad. What do you think?
I do like both your lineups quite a bit. Obviously, you picking up a W and having the points lead after week 1. We know your team has a lot of upside. So this week is definitely not who your team is if you see similar red numbers coming up in the next couple days here. But no, if I were a betting man though, I think the good money goes Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's going to be tough to really compete against that stack because every week 2 of those players are going to have 20 points. And if they don't, he's going to find it somewhere else. So it's going to be tough for you, buddy. I'm rooting you on, but I'm pushing all my chips on Michael Tweeden picking up his second win this week. What do you feel?
I would have to agree with you. Michael Pittman is also a scary one. I think he picked up a hamstring injury, quad injury. Yep. So he hasn't been practicing. I'm going to see how that works out. He was awesome for me in week 1. If he doesn't play this week, I will be a very, very sad boy. Yeah, I think he'll go away with the 2-0 start. I'll be 1-1. So 1-1. Wow.
I believe Nick also picked Michael Tweeden here.
You don't have to say that. I think he picked me. All right. Next up is Kicking It with Kareem versus the fantasy football team. Again, 1-0. Both of them are 1-0. Someone's going to be undefeated after this game. Why don't you go through and tell us what you're seeing on both sides? Couch.
Sure. Let's start with Jordan's team here. I like Christian Kirk in that Jacksonville offense after week 1. We see he's gonna be worth the money they're paying him, and we also we talked about it earlier. Mooney had a fluke game. He's, I believe, the number 1 wide receiver in that offense. So we're going to see something from him and Justin Fields hopefully develop this week or in the upcoming weeks. There is a potential, obviously, with the Mark Andrews stack and Lamar. Lamar Jackson. There we go, yeah. Third time. There's always potential to win games with just that stack alone. It's what you've been looking for with Pat Mahomes, and I think a lot of players as an example here as his opponent, the Joe Burrow Higgins stack. Although Higgins did get out early that game with a concussion, those are going to be things that win you games throughout the year. Once they make a connection, it's really tough to overcome 15 or 12 points, whatever they get from that touchdown pass. So the matchup is saying, I believe it's a 4-point difference in projections. I'm actually going to say it stays pretty close to that. But I'll give the projection what it's asking for, and I'll go with, I think Ben picks up the win here.
Okay.
And
yeah. I think I have similar outlook that you do. I think, straight up Diggs versus Sutton. I think Diggs wins. Higgins versus Kirk. That could be a toss-up with him getting that concussion, seeing what that's all about. And then I like Deontay Johnson's getting targets from Mitch Trubisky, but he got 12 targets for the first week, so I think he's going to continue with that kind of target share. This is going to be a really fun one to watch. It's going to be super close, I think. If Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews or Mandrews gets that connection, and Andrews has 2 touchdowns, or Lamar goes off for 100 yards rushing, or I think Rasky has that as an X factor. I will go against the projection, lean Rasky a bit, but I would not be surprised if Ben's team goes off. So that's going to be a really fun one to watch. I think it's going to be super close. The next one, we got Nectar of the Gods 0-1 versus No Egrets 0-1. So one of them's going to be very defeated and be winless after this week. Who do you think that is?
This is the 9th ranked team versus the 10th ranked team.
Yes.
So this is the blackout game of the week. You don't have to watch this one if you don't want to. Me being a part of it, I'm going to watch very closely. But a lot of the projections I don't think do his team justice. I do worry about Lazar a little bit with his health. Evans is always a concern with health. So, and anytime you have players like that, 1 or 2 bad hits or plays in the first quarter, and your whole weekend can be shot. And that's what scares me with his team. On my side of the ball, I'm not feeling great about a few matchups. But I do know my team isn't, I believe I put up 90 points last week. I know my team's not a 90-point team. A lot of these players have shown that they can put up bigger numbers, and I think we're going to see that I actually can put up 120 maybe this week and pick up the W. How are you feeling about this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, over on Tyler's side, he's got, DeAndre Swift has that foot problem, I think. He's got a lot of questionables over here.
Smog, did you see if I think he participated today in practice. Or was that, I think that was Najee Harris, actually. I apologize.
Yeah.
I think Najee was back in practice today.
Yep. So, a lot of question marks over here. Are they going to play? Are they going to be fully healthy? We obviously have a little bit of a preview with MVS. 7 targets, only 2 catches for 13 yards. Not what you want to see. So I will put it in your favor. I like your guys. Brandon Cooks has always been sneakily great. Henderson, obviously, we saw he's the one as of now. So
for this week,
yep, I think he's great. And yeah, I think you'll come away with a win here.
Doesn't hurt when he puts up 8 points with 2 players in the Thursday night game. You feel good going into Sunday seeing that. So
right. So the next one is Who Do You Think You Are? I Am versus Rando Guy Out East. We have a little preview here. Obviously, Justin Herbert did some good things. He got him 24 points.
Did he match his projections?
No, I think just after the game they put it. Yeah, so that'd be pretty insane. But he got 24 points. That's what you want from your quarterback. So that's a pretty good head start there. And then obviously he has the stack with Mike Williams, who put up a monster game: 8 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown.
Mostly in the first half too.
Yeah. So, seeing that little preview, I have to, maybe lean Joe a little bit. But, Russell Wilson didn't have a great week 1. I think there's better games to come from Russell Wilson. We know who Russell Wilson is, and he's very good. So I think he's going to put up better points. Against Houston, it's not tough. So, and then obviously he has the Taylor and Barkley running backs here, who could obviously put up 60 points just by themselves, like they did last week. So there is a chance that they do the same thing as last week, and then in that instance, I would lean the other way. CeeDee Lamb scares me. DJ Moore scares me a little bit with Baker throwing him the ball. But every other player on his team I like. Do you see it any different?
Yeah, I think this is a game where you rarely are going to see this, hopefully this year, where I feel like Tanner's going to put up 130 points like he's close to projecting. Mm-hmm. But Joe's just going to put up like 160.
You think so, yeah?
A lot of his players have a very significant upside this week in their matchups. And I will say Tanner's do also, but I think already having that Thursday night game logged in, yeah, it'd be tough to see Joe ever being behind in this week. And if he does lose, it's not going to be by much. So I'll pick Joe. I'm not happy about it. But, yeah, it's the easiest choice to make.
Yeah,
here.
I definitely picked Joe as well, just because of this preview. I mean, we already saw what Herbert and Williams did. So, but anything can happen. The projections are still close, but they're projections, of course. So those anything can happen. This will be another fun one to watch as the week plays out on Sunday, Monday. And the last one, we have your host, Bog, Sir Davos versus the natural-born Kylers, Ethan, with a very, very, very close projection. And looking through these teams, I see that I think it's pretty close too. Nick, going with the tandem running backs here. Green Bay, doubling up on Green Bay running backs. Last week it was not bad to do. This week, Green Bay owns Chicago. In years past, they might do it again. I think they will. I like both of these running backs. It sucks that he has both of them, that he has to feel like he has to play both of them. But I think he also has Kamara. Yep, he has Kamara going in his flex. A little preview here with Travis Kelsey. Only got 7.6 points. Not what you're expecting out of Kelsey. You're looking for more like 10, 15. But that's nothing to scoff. Anything close to 7 points with a tight end is fantastic, usually. So, what are you seeing here?
I do think starting both Green Bay running backs isn't an issue. We've seen that they both get used quite a bit against us in week 1, and I don't see that offense with its lack of wide receivers right now, or its new wide receivers, I should say, for Aaron Rodgers. I don't see them going to the air all game. They're going to have to rely on these two, so that's where you're going to see a lot of points put up. And then on the other side of the ball, I do also think it's funny, but once again, you got two wide receivers for Miami, but we saw in week 1 that they can both produce at a high level, and I think they're going to be trading 1-2 punches the rest of the year on who's wearing that crown for number 1 wide receiver. So I don't know what is the total projections on this one here. It's pretty close,
very close,
isn't it?
123 to 123.
I think. And this is a rematch of the championship game last year.
It is. It's a revenge game for Nick.
Yep, and I will give Nick the nod by a 0.01. He slim margin of victory.
All right. Yeah, I'll give him the nod as well. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is an X factor over here. He could put up 25 points like he did last week, but so can Devontae Adams. He had 17 targets last week, and they're facing Arizona. I think it might be a shootout. I will give the nod to Bog as well. And yeah, that was the week 2 preview, and that was the show for this year. For this week.
I guess we're done. All right.
We're done. All right. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Couch, for joining me in Bog's absence. And we will see you guys next week.
Take care, guys.